All important answers need to come from within you. Yeah, not really sure about that. I think a lot of times people will have things within them and urges that aren't actually good for other people and other beings, and therefore we shouldn't always just follow what's within. Nah, just kidding. If you feel it, just go for it. If you feel the desire to kill someone, go for it. If you feel the desire to eat a human and kill them before you eat them, go for it. I mean, if you feel the desire to steal something from someone else and it's from within, just go for it. Hey, what is up, guys? So today I'm going to be responding to Eckhart Tolle and his video on the relationship between spirituality and food. I've actually read his book, The Power of Now, fully. For those who don't know, Eckhart Tolle is a spiritual guru kind of person, and he talks about the power of the now and meditation and how to be more present in general. I tend to follow Sam Harris's work on this kind of stuff much more than his, just because Sam Harris is a bit more secular. But regardless, I found the book interesting, and I also think it's very important to, read up on people who you don't fully agree with, just to understand where they're coming from and see why they think the way they do, as opposed to the way that you think. So Eckhart Tolle says some pretty weird things in this video, so we're gonna dissect the video a little bit and see what this really means in reference to veganism and animal rights. To get an idea of what we're working with here, the top rated comment on this video is beautifully expressed: one eats from their current state of consciousness.
I read a quote where you were discussing people's food choices and how that's connected maybe to their spirituality. And I'm wondering if you can elaborate on how that's connected, especially concerning ahimsa.
Thank you. I would say I never do to tell people you should do this or you should not do that, but you should be present with whatever your food choices are, and then the right food choice will happen for you, rather than giving an abstract guideline. It needs to come from within rather than as something from without.
So already I'm a little bit confused. I mean, the idea that we should look within when it comes to our choices, especially in reference to ahimsa, because the interviewer did mention ahimsa. Like, what if a serial killer who's cannibalistic looks inside and just feels like, hey, I want to start eating humans? Like, are we supposed to just accept that because the serial killer was present and looked deep within and realized, hey, like, I want to start murdering humans and eating them? This is the kind of absurdity that you land in when it comes to these kinds of hippy-dippy spiritual woo-woo people that just use very vague language. I understand that it sounds very wise at face value for someone to say, I don't really recommend telling people what they should do, and I also don't recommend giving an abstract guideline, but instead we should just look within. Like, this sounds very nice, but when you think about the logical extension of this attitude, you have people that are just looking within to determine what they want to eat. What if what they discover they want to eat while in the process of looking within and being present is a baby pig or a human being, or a being that would rather not be murdered and suffer just so they can be eaten by another person, only because they feel that they should be eating that innocent being? Sounds pretty insane to me.
If you're a vegetarian, that's wonderful. It doesn't mean that immediately makes you into a person who is spiritual. You could be egoically identified with being vegetarian, in which case it would be a hindrance to the realization of the spiritual dimension. So I shocked a vegetarian once when I said, did you know that Hitler was a vegetarian? That person was very strongly identified with a mental image of me as a spiritually evolved vegetarian. And so, yes, he was a vegetarian. I don't know why he was a vegetarian. Perhaps, I don't know, I haven't read about it, but I know that whenever people around Hitler were eating chicken soup, and so he said condescendingly, so you're eating dead bird soup.
Yeah, so I don't know how true all that is about Hitler being a vegetarian. And it's kind of funny because if that story is true, he kind of sounds like a vegan that, looks at someone and says, oh, like, are you enjoying your dead, tortured, mutilated corpse? It's kind of funny. But anyway, what he says about how, being vegetarian isn't necessarily a good thing from a spiritual perspective when you're kind of like egoically or egotistically identifying with being vegetarian. I understand what he means by that. If you're not familiar with his work, he's all about releasing your attachment to the ego. So if somebody, looks at their vegetarianism or veganism as a sort of sign that their own ego, that their self is a good person or a spiritual person, he would view that as a hindrance toward enlightenment or unattachment from the self. But regardless, I kind of have the same issue here as I usually do with other spiritual gurus like Sadhguru, who claim to be spiritual and claim to practice ahimsa while not actively telling people like, hey, you should stop consuming a diet which causes so much suffering and death. Like, it just seems intuitive to me that a person who is spiritual, that is so concerned with being present and, experiencing blissful and peaceful states, would also consider the peaceful states or the potential peaceful states that an animal can feel if they lived in a world where, people weren't paying for them to be mutilated for bacon or, beef or burgers or whatever.
So it really is, the answer to that comes from within you, and you have to do what feels right, what corresponds to your state of consciousness at any time when you even look at food or even think of food. It is helpful to, sometimes when I buy some food, I go into a supermarket or somewhere and I look at the shelf, I imagine that this is going into my body and then the body either opens up to it or closes down.
This is just so weird to me. Like, in what other area do we just kind of accept advice like this? He said that he goes into the supermarket and he grabs the food, he looks at it, and he feels if his body is open to it or closed off to it. So again, like what I said earlier, what if somebody is literally a cannibalistic serial killer and they hold up, the dead body of a human and is like, oh, my body is just opening up to it in this present moment. My level of consciousness is just in alignment with me consuming this human and maybe even killing another human to consume them. How weird of a logical extension of this attitude is that? Like, how psychopathic would you have to be to just be like, yeah, you know what, he felt it in his conscious experience, in his present moment, he just felt it. Therefore, it's okay that he goes and murders humans and innocent animals to eat them. Yeah, so the rest of the video, he kind of just goes over some other things that aren't really too related to veganism, so I'm not going to cover them. But I will read some comments, and some of them are pretty good and others are pretty terrible, so let's get into them. Ooh, look at this one. I believe that as we become more spiritually awakened and see our connection to all living things, we naturally begin to make food choices that does not harm the planet and living creature. I think there was maybe a little bit of a language barrier there, but yeah, pretty straightforward, right? I mean, if you're gonna claim to have a diet that is intact with spirituality and nature, doesn't it just make sense intuitively that you would want to have a diet that reduces harm as much as reasonably possible? Ooh, look at this one. Respecting Eckhart's choices, I have only one question for him. What is the reasoning for a spiritual person who discovered love and compassion to eat other sentient beings and thus support their suffering? Amazing question. Basically the point of this entire video. All important answers need to come from within you. Yeah, not really sure about that. I think a lot of times people will have things within them and urges that aren't actually good for other people and other beings, and therefore we shouldn't always just follow what's within. Nah, just kidding. If you feel it, just go for it. If you feel the desire to kill someone, go for it. If you feel the desire to eat a human and kill them before you eat them, go for it. I mean, if you feel the desire to steal something from someone else and it's from within, just go for it. Absolutely brilliant. Eckhart never gives a set of rules of commandments, but asks us to be 100% present and know if the action/thought is right or wrong. This man is a true master. Yeah, I mean, I understand how on the surface it seems so mysterious and how he's never gonna give you a guideline and is more giving you this broad range of things to do. But when you really just think about what he's saying something that has really scary conclusions. I would never tell someone to just do something because they looked within and it felt right. The amount of people that have looked within in the past and as a result did something horrible is a pretty big number. Respect to Eckhart Tolle's meditative work. This video topic aside, I think he has some pretty interesting things to say about, the power of now and, being present. But this is just complete nonsense. All right, guys, that is the end of the video. Thank you so much for watching. Please like, comment, and share. I'm wondering if this video is going to result in some Eckhart Tolle butthurt fans commenting. So look out for that in case they end up showing up. If you support my work and want to support me on Patreon, the link is in my description. Thank you again for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.
Dude, even vegans don't get your weird, stupid wannabe sense of irony here. Who's your audience? Nobody gets these dumb jokes. Dude, even vegans don't get your weird, stupid